Good evening, everyone. My name's Eliza Hirani,
I'm Corbin Felder.
and we'd like to thank you all for coming out tonight to the event titled Islam and Hip Hop, the Five Pillars and the Five Elements. This event is a collaboration between U of M's Hip Hop Congress and the Muslim Students Association. We'd like to give a special thank you and shout out to Multi-Ethnic Student Affairs MESA for their generous sponsorship and support of this event. We have a very exciting program for tonight, but first, we want to give you a bit of background about what prompted us to do this event.
So Islam and hip hop oftentimes go hand in hand, and we want to explore these connections with the prevalence of Muslim hip hop artists such as Lupe Fiasco, Yassine Bey, formerly known as Mos Def, Q-Tip, and many others. So we kind of want to explore the questions of Islam and hip hop and Islam, the experiences of Muslim artists, and so on.
We'll explore the impact that Islam has had in inspiring hip hop artists' experiences, identities, lyrics, and trace the unique historical and current potential of Islam and hip hop in empowering and bringing these communities together to challenge the hegemonic perception of both Islam and hip hop.
But first, we want to kind of set the scene, and we're going to do this by our own Amer Ahmed, who's the Associate Director of Multi-Ethnic Student Affairs, MESA. He's also a hip-hop activist, spoken word artist, and he's done his dissertation on Islam and hip-hop. So he's going to present a bit of information first, and then we're going to begin the panel with hip-hop artists Langston and One Below.
I stand poisoned by religion and decisions of sin. As television spins the lives of white men, I see no friends as the media sends the myth of the truth to fear my brown skin. So let me begin with my fallen kin. When the panic and the friendly killed Americans, now odds and despises surround the lives as bombs terminate the end of human lives. Well, the husbands and wives is suburban lives. Lock all the doors and remain terrorized, so I must comply to the FBI. I'm a suspect who is subject to my ethnic ties. Though American born, my heart remains torn to my people who are equal all around the world. Because the hordes of war are beating the drum, hidden in the sins and lies for freedom. So stand up, son, because we have no time. An eye for an eye makes the world go blind. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Amer Ahmed. I serve as Associate Director for MESA and Trotter. I actually did my master's thesis, and I'm working on a dissertation in relationship to Islam and Black America as related to the oral tradition manifesting in hip-hop culture. And so what I thought I would do today is to introduce you to a little bit of the historical context, because a lot of people, they think Islam, they think hip-hop, they think these are two separate things that have no relationship to one another. But when you explore the historical context, you're able to see the connections and recognize why we have a disproportionate representation of Islamic-based ideologies in hip-hop culture today. So, first and foremost, for those of you who are not very familiar with the religion of Islam, it emerged in Arabia, modern-day Saudi Arabia, amongst predominantly nomadic Bedouin societies with strong oral traditions. There was strict memorization of ancestral stories, and with the revelation of the holy book, the Quran, it was strictly memorized from the very beginning. And it was spread, the religion of Islam initially was mostly spread by oral tradition. And this tradition carried on the tradition of the Judeo-Christian tradition with prophets such as Abraham, Jesus, Moses, and Noah. So in the process of Islam spreading through the oral tradition and the Arabian Peninsula being a hub of trade, especially the city of Mecca, which is the holy center of the Islamic world, trade from Mecca went west and east in each direction, but to West Africa, the Muslims had access to trans-Saharan trade routes. And actually, you had to be a Muslim to have access to those trade routes. So first and foremost, there would be trading of goods on the edge of the Sahara Desert in West Africa, in which people would share stories as they were exchanging goods. So in West Africa, you had a strong oral tradition. In fact, you had no written tradition. And it's hard for us to understand today that when you're in a society of an oral tradition, people are able to listen. Their listening skills are beyond maybe what we're used to today, that when someone says something or when someone says a story, you can repeat it back word for word through strict memorization. It's something that is very easy in an oral tradition society because it's part of the ethos and the way in which people communicate and engage one another. So that interaction between oral traditions caused a fusing and a melding. And then also the advantage of needing to be Muslim to have access to these trade routes is what caused kings in West Africa to convert to Islam and many others. And as a result, these stories started to fuse and create an indigenous Islamic reality in West Africa. It wasn't something through conquering that occurred. In fact, many of the Muslim tradesmen who came from Arabia, they were oftentimes, if they settled there, they were oftentimes arbitrators of disputes and so forth. So there was no conquering involved. It became integrated and fused into the ethos of West African culture. This is a map of predominantly Muslim parts of Africa. And so you can, and the green areas are predominantly Muslim. And you can see in particular, the west coast of Africa was had significant Muslim populations and a major source of the Atlantic slave trade. And what we know through historical research and data is that British North America, the slaves that came, 20 to 25% of them were Muslims. 48.7% came from Muslim-ruled territories. So Islam was part of the ethos of the formation of black culture in North America. So in the process of creating what became known as black culture, you had subversive efforts to try to maintain culture, religion, tradition, right, of various African backgrounds. Amongst them were Muslims. They tried to find secret ways to be able to maintain their religion. There's evidence of churches, which were the places in which slaves were allowed to practice religion, and it was the only place they were allowed to be by themselves. There's been churches that have been found to be oriented towards Mecca with secret compartments with prayer beads and prayer rugs that have been found in them. In addition, there are islands off the coast of South Carolina and Georgia in which Muslim slaves killed their slave masters and ruled over small islands for hundreds of years into the 20th century, in which researchers found these people maintaining echoes of Islamic traditions and names and heritage on those islands because those people were living in isolation. However, in the process, people began to lose the specificity of their culture, but they maintained aesthetics, including improvisation, syncopated rhythms, and the oral tradition. These are something that cut across beyond just Muslims, but it was part of the formation of black culture. But Islam was part of that formation. So in that process, you had a musical tradition that was drawn from those aesthetics, in which you had first field hollers and work songs where people in the fields who were slaves were working and singing songs that were really drawn directly from aesthetics from Africa. But then you had something like called ring shouts. You had spirituals, and spirituals, of course, led to gospel music and this kind of tradition within the church. But then separately outside the church, you had things like blues and jazz, and then bebop is kind of sped up jazz, a type of jazz. You had soul, you had funk, and that kind of led to the formation of hip-hop culture. Now, I'm going to really focus specifically on the oral tradition in hip-hop, and I know that hip-hop is broader than that. We'll explore that a little bit later. But a little bit more about the history of Islam in Black America. First of all, a lot of people don't realize that there's starting to be evidence of Muslim West Africans coming to the Americas before European contact. And there's still research being done about that, specifically in South America. But I think it's something that is notable. But we do know the first documented Muslim slave was a guy named Esteban, who came. He was a Moor from Spain, was brought by Spanish conquistadors in 1527. He was found in Florida. I mentioned to you the Georgian and Sapelo Islands, which were off the coast of South Carolina and Georgia. And then something that's little known is a man named Edward Blyden was a person who was interested in going to West Africa. He was part of the formation of a country called Liberia, which was created by former slaves, freed slaves from the Americas who wanted to go back and create a colony in West Africa. And their intention, amongst most of them, including Blyden, was to go and to convert West Africans to Christianity. And so what Blyden did is that he actually asked this slave, an African slave named Umar ibn Sayyid, who was a Muslim, who knew Arabic, he asked him to translate the Bible into Arabic, and so that he could go to West Africa. And what actually happened was that from memorization, Umar ibn Sayyid actually ended up writing the Quran. And so Edward Blyden went to West Africa with what he thought was a translated Arabic Bible to convert people to Christianity. But then when he got there and he was converting, people were saying, wait a minute, you're giving us our own book. And so what Blyden started to realize is that these people didn't need to be converted. They didn't need to be civilized. This was the psychology of the initial people who were wanted to create Liberia, was that we need to civilize our ancestors who have not had the good fortune of experiencing Western culture, right? So we need to bring that to them and civilize our ancestors. And so Blyden started to realize these people don't need to be civilized at all. They have a very advanced society and culture. And so he ended up actually living amongst them. And people don't know if he ever converted or not. But what we do know is that he started writing a book that basically introduced the concept of Pan-Africanism. Now, Pan-Africanism was an idea in which there was a global black diasporic identity connected to African culture, that all African descendants were part of a Pan-African identity that they all shared across cultural contexts, whether Jamaica, North America, Brazil, wherever people were at, that there was this Pan-African identity related to the continent. After Blyden, a person named Marcus Garvey picked up his ideas, and he actually went to England and studied under a Pan-Islamist in London, who was part of a anti-colonial movement out of London that was global, that was focused on resisting colonization across the Islamic world. Garvey took these Pan-Islamist ideas, linked them with Blyden's Pan-African ideas, and created this movement of Pan-Africanism in the United States, known as the UNAIA movement. Now, connected to Garvey's movement were a number of Islamic-based ideologies. Even though it was a secular movement, there was a number of Islamic-based ideologies that were connected to his movement. One of them was a man named Noble Drew Ali, who led a group called the Moorish Science Temple. His idea was that because racism was so pernicious, and being black was so pernicious, that he thought that identifying with Moorish identity, an ethnic identity, that actually had a positive sentiment in the United States, because the Moroccans were actually the first country to acknowledge the sovereignty of the United States. The Moorish Science Temple said, we're Moorish Americans. We want to have an ethnic identity. We want to identify with this as opposed to a racialized identity of blackness. And so you had that group, and you add an individual named Farad Mohammed, who is kind of an enigmatic figure, but eventually he kind of got bounced around in different movements, but eventually ended up teaching a person named Elijah Muhammad, who ended up creating the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam was a non-Orthodox form of Islam that was created, and then, of course, famously, Malcolm X emerged as a significant leader of that tradition. And then, over the course of his life, Malcolm X came into mainstream global Islam, which was a more Orthodox form of Islam, Sunni Islam. And this is a journey, the Malcolm's journey is a journey that many, many African Americans have gone through, whether through the Nation of Islam or directly to mainstream Islam since then. So, at the same time, you have this continuation of this oral tradition, and the delivery of these messages of identity, of reclaiming of identity, of resistance, through the use of the oral tradition. So you have all these figures using the word as a powerful way of delivering these messages. And then, of course, spiritual scripts to support that. So, as many of you know, Malcolm X was a powerful orator. Even Muhammad Ali is considered to be a forerunner of the formation of hip-hop culture. And then in the black nationalist movement, which Ali was a part of, and of course Malcolm X was a part of, you had groups like The Last Poets and Gil Scott-Heron, who wrote The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. And The Last Poets right here are credited as being some of the forefathers of the creation of hip-hop culture. These were black nationalist poets speaking in resistance. And so what was happening in this black nationalist movement was this overlay between Islamic-based ideologies within the environment of black nationalist movements, overlaid with oral tradition. And emerging from that, you had hip-hop culture. And so in my view, that is the reason why you have this disproportionate representation of Islamic-based ideologies. Whether you're talking about the Nation of Islam, whether you're talking about mainstream Islam, or you're even talking about 5%ers, which was an offshoot of the Nation of Islam, which signifies using Islamic-based language and terms, but is not necessarily a specific form of Islam. But you had this kind of reaching back into ancestral knowledge and wisdom to reclaim identity, and Islam being part of that identity when people are looking back to West Africa, looking back to their roots and their heritage, and reclaiming that and bypassing the trauma and the pain of slavery. So this culture of resistance was very much part of the identity of people connecting to Islamic-based ideologies, but it was also part of the cultivation of hip-hop culture. Hip-hop culture is a counterculture. It's a resistance to hegemonic forces, to dominance, to systems of oppression, right? So you kind of had these kinds of ideas and this sentiment cross-pollinating and happening within the same individuals. So the same individual that is connecting to hip-hop culture is also learning about Islam and learning about Black nationalist concepts and ideas and integrating all of those things into a person's reclaiming of identity and resistance. So now you have this extremely vibrant, diverse Islamic representation in America. Muhammad Ali being one of the most famous Americans, and him being an African American Muslim, but famous athletes, comedians, hip hop artists, congresspeople, imams. So you have all this different representation, and then you have significant representation within the hip hop community. So artists like Mos Def or Yasin Bey, Lupe Fiasco, Brother Ali, Tribe Called Quest, Jurassic 5, Rakim. So all these artists, Ghostface Killer, Freeway, so many different artists, and a lot of them encode their music with hip-hop, with Islamic concepts and ideas. And a lot of times people aren't really picking them up, but people who know that it's there. So how many of you know Mos Def's Umi Says? Right? A lot of you know that song, right? Does anybody know what that is? What Umi is? Umi, you do? What is it? Mother. Umi is an African American Muslim term for mother, right? So it's it's right there in front of you, right? One of his most famous songs has a direct reference that really signifies and connects him directly to the African American Muslim community, but most people don't even know what that is, right? So there's a lot of that in hip hop, right? So since then, this emergence of Black Muslims in hip hop, you've seen a diversification. As the United States has diversified, you've seen hip hop diversify. So you see artists like Maimouna Youssef, who is a Choctaw Native American and Black and Muslim. The Reminders, who are going to be in town tomorrow. Samir is from the Congo, grew up in Belgium, converted to Islam, moved to the United States, and grew up here. Asia her family has Jamaican roots, was an Army brat, grew up around the world, and also converted to Islam. Liza Garza is Mexican American. The Narcissist is an Iraqi Canadian. So these are kind of emerging voices in the Muslim community in hip hop. Then you also have activist movements tied to this kind of multicultural Islamic reality. And an organization called IMAN, Inner City Muslim Action Network, is doing significant work in this realm, and they're kind of connecting the work, the fact that a lot of the communities that they're serving on the south side of Chicago have significant Muslim populations, but they're leveraging that to serve the entire south side of Chicago through social justice work, and you kind of see kind of how it all kind of intersects in this video. For some reason. So I use this video to kind of give you an example of how Islam and the intersection with hip hop culture is being used as a facilitator of engagement of social justice issues in communities from which hip hop is emerging from, right? So Southside Chicago is an environment in which hip hop has emerged from, and it's being used as a tool to be able to engage some of the issues. Being that hip hop is a countercultural reality, and Islam is a significant reality in these communities, but it also is multicultural. And so it connects across different groups, and it creates opportunities to build coalitions to be able to organize around. And actually what they didn't say was that a lot of those liquor stores that they do work with, they're Muslim owned and run. And what they've done is they've actually challenged the owners to really think about, wait a minute, you're peddling alcohol, you're peddling, food that poisons the community, but you go home and you preach in your home that you're a Muslim and that you're raising your family Muslim, but yet you have this dichotomy of kind of not serving the community in your business practices, and that's okay. And so they're really kind of challenging this idea that Islam in one space is okay, but in this other space that it's okay to perpetuate broader social ills. And so that's really a powerful message, and that resonates with a lot of different groups, and it mobilizes people around the fact that, okay, maybe we need to be thinking about serving the entire community, and that our lives need to be living in alignment. And hip hop creates an opportunity to bring those different groups together. Another video I wanted to show you, hopefully this one works properly, is a video called New Muslim Cool. And this kind of gives you a sense of how much the Muslim community and its intersection with hip hop has diversified. It's about a Puerto Rican Muslim and the work he does. Okay, so I show you that to kind of not only kind of bring you into the diversity of Muslim hip hop, but also to show how the challenges of resistance are changing, right? With the changing dynamic that the Muslim community is facing in the United States, you have hip hop being a voice to this new resistance, not just this long-standing racial resistance around black and white, but this Islamic-based resistance, and hip hop being a voice for that, to speak out to the issues that this community is facing as well. You've also had a globalized Muslim hip hop community, and the main source of that has been Public Enemy, and with them signifying using Malcolm X as a symbol, and speaking to the issues of marginalized people all over the world, especially Muslim people in post-colonial realities, have really connected and identified with hip-hop culture and used it as a voice. So this, in many ways, caused the formation of Islamic hip-hop realities all over the world. And so you see the North Africans in France connecting to it. You see Palestinians. You see people in Senegal. You see people all over the world, and hip-hop being a voice. And part of the power of hip-hop is that you don't need a lot of resources to do it. So therefore, it can be a voice for marginalized people who don't have other resources. And so now you have this super diverse Muslim hip-hop reality, not just here in the United States, but all around the world. And it's creating a global interconnected dynamic, especially with the internet, that it's creating connections all over the world. And maybe one below can talk a little bit about that. And I'm gonna show one more clip, and this is just about hip-hop in Palestine and a film called Slingshot Hip Hop to kind of exemplify that connection, and then we'll get started with our panel. Okay, so that's really what I have for you all, but just to kind of the one more thing just about that video is that it really kind of exemplifies how the identification with struggle and resistance in the United States with other people's struggles in other places. And so I think that that's a really powerful aspect of that kind of global dynamic around Islam and hip hop, and people kind of identifying with each other's struggles, and that multicultural phenomenon. And even though it comes from a black aesthetic, a black historical tradition, hip hop from the formation of it in South Bronx in New York was a multicultural phenomenon. So you have this relationship between this particular struggle in the United States of resistance in relationship to other issues of struggle and resistance in post-colonial realities all over the world. So with that, we'll open it up for our panel.
Thank you so much, Amer, for that enlightening talk. We're going to go ahead and move on to the panel discussion, and Amer will be facilitating that, and then we'll open up the floor to you all for any questions that you may have. But before that, we would like to introduce to you guys our panelists.
So first, he's from Pontiac, Michigan. He's a legendary underground MC. His name is Nasheed Suleiman, but he's first known as One Man Army, then One Below. He was with the group Binary Star. No, sorry. He was with Binary Star, and then where they first released their first album, Waterworld, in 1999. And then his first solo album was Project Fetus, and that came out in 2003. His second album, Sonogram, released through Fat Beats, came out 2 years later, and he's always touring. He works with national student organizations and community-based organizations. He's built a reputation as one of the hardest working artists in the underground, and he frequently travels around the world to Egypt and places in Europe, and has built himself a loyal audience, and he's a great lyricist with his use of metaphors, storytelling skills, and his socially conscious and relevant lyrics. Our first panelist is One Below. You can come on down.
Next, we have Langston Love. He's no stranger to hip hop and is an artist in every sense of the word, from photography to creative direction, breakdancing, graphic design, and music. He's been influenced from the likes of his fellow legendary panelists One Below, Slum Village, Mos Def, Lupe Fiasco, Rocksteady Crew, and many more. An avid b-boy for more than 10 years, Langston Love has always sought the sounds of organic hip-hop. Recently, after reconciling his understanding of the permissibility of music in his faith, he released his debut project titled Serve Love Prequel EP this year, reigniting his musical talents that lay dormant since his conversion to Islam in 2007. Langston Love has he is often referred to, was born in Detroit, raised in Oak Park, and currently resides in Greater Detroit area, and is currently a student of anthropology at Wayne State University.
Also, we just want to let you guys know, so we're expecting the reminders, but if you know, they're coming in from Canada. They're on tour with Brother Ali. They're performing, Brother Ali and the Reminders performing tomorrow at the Blind Pig, and unfortunately there was difficulties at the border, so they could not be here, but they send their well regards.
And if Amer could go ahead and start facilitating. Thank you.
All right. So, so we don't know if there was problems at the borders, but we just know that they're not in the United States.
Oh, sorry.
I don't want to. But just to get started, I mean, if you know, I think you all, I tried to lay a context and a foundation for this conversation. So, I mean, I don't know if there's any kind of initial thoughts or responses you have based on that, and also maybe how you might think that some of the things that I talked about, how that might connect to your story as a Muslim hip-hop artist.
Assalamu alaikum. How y'all doing? If you was paying attention to the videos and stuff, you know, basically you got a presentation, but I can relate to a lot of things he said from a personal perspective, you know, a personal experience. I grew up in Pontiac, Michigan. I grew up in going to church. You know, my mother and father, I went to church, and I grew up in Pontiac, Michigan. And around 1994, that's when I graduated from high school. And a couple months later, I went to prison. And so when I was in prison, I started reading books. And it just so happened that, you know, I was reading like a lot of different books or whatever, but I started studying the Moorish Science Temple. I never read a history book about it. I never knew anything about Noble Drew Ali until I got to jail. And so I started studying with the Moorish Science Temple. And coming from Pontiac, Michigan, I thought Islam was bean pies and bow ties in the Nation of Islam. That's what I thought Islam was. And so when I started, you know, studying with the Moorish Science Temple, you know, I just, you know, it was the teachings of Noble Drew Ali. I was like, oh man, this is the truth. And so I started studying with the Moorish Science Temple, and I read the autobiography of Malcolm X. You know, that's like my first time even being exposed to that kind of stuff, and I thought this was the truth, you know, for me at that time. You know, and like, talking to more people, they started telling me the history behind like Noble Drew Ali and the Moorish Science Temple and the Nation of Islam and all of those things. And so like in 1995, it's the first time I read the Quran, and it just, it blew my mind. But most importantly, kind of like in your presentation, it was like I was coming to Islam in these stages. I was learning about it in these stages. When I first heard about Islam, I thought it was about, the white man was the devil. I thought it was about bean pies and, that kind of thing. And so when I started reading the Quran, I started realizing, like, man, it's nothing like that. It was a real beautiful thing to me, And the reason why I bring up the fact that I was in jail, I was in prison, because, I had just turned 18 years old. And, to be from Pontiac, Michigan, this was the first time that I was away from my parents. I was away from preachers and people telling me, what to think and what to do. And so for the first time, I started reading the Bible, and I started reading the Quran. I had nobody telling me, like, why are you reading that? What are you doing? And so I just basically could use my own intelligence, my own mind. And so the things that I started learning about, God and about myself and about people, I would read the Quran and it would say, oh, you children of Adam, oh, you children of Adam, oh, you children of Adam. And that's when I realized, like, man, like, we all the same family, you know what I'm saying? Instead of me saying those Egyptian people over there or those Arab people or those Chinese people, I started realizing, for myself that, we are the same family. And so I think that was a real important time in my life, because that was right before we started this group called Binary Star. I used to rap in high school, but, I was just rapping about whatever. So when I came out of jail, now I'm thinking, like, man, like, these my people, like, black, white, Asian, these my brothers and sisters. I'm not looking at them like those people. I'm looking at them like they're my brothers, they're my sisters. And I think that was really important in my own growth and development, because when we started writing rhymes and recording, after that, we started thinking about people and women and money and just the world in a totally different context than when we first went in. So, for myself, that was my introduction to Islam. And like I said, I learned about it when I was in jail. And the 2.5 years that I was incarcerated, I had time to, like, just kind of like pound and shape my own personality. It wasn't like a phase or a fad or something like that. So by the time I got home, like, I knew who I was. I knew this is what I believed. It wasn't like a temporary kind of thing. And I had been away from my parents and my friends and the peer pressure. I had been away from that long enough to kind of like solidify those things within myself. So I just think that was a real important time for me and my personal growth and development. And the way I learned about Noble Drew Ali and Malcolm X and Islam and all that stuff, like I said, I just had time to just read and study and think and ponder, you know what I'm saying? So 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a day, that's just what I played basketball and, did different things like that, but I really just had time to just study and think and try to improve myself. And so it was a real important time in my life. And then when I got home from prison, I'm doing music, but, like, I'm not like the rest of my friends. They're like, oh man, we need to get this record deal, we need to do this. And I'm like, nah, I'm like, we getting ready to do our own thing, And so, as far as traveling around the world, I'm just gonna keep it short, but I've always had 2 passports, and one passport was Islam and the other passport was music. And in the beginning, I thought I was going around performing, doing these hip hop shows, but then I started realizing, like, nah, it's way bigger than that. I'm meeting all these different people from these different cultures, and, like, with the, when you think about the manners of Muhammad, just the way he carried himself around, like, all different types of people, it's like a passport. If you racist, or if you don't like this group of people, if you don't get along with those people, if you don't like something, you're not going to be able to be around those people, you know what I'm saying? But we started putting those type of ideas in our music, and we started carrying ourselves like that, and we didn't even know it at the time, but it was like we was unlocking doors, just because, like, just the things that we believed and how we embodied that in our music. And to this day, with the Binary Star record, so it's just a personal example of how, like, with that, I don't know if many people are familiar with Binary Star, but me and my friend, we put this record out like 12, 13 years ago. We never toured. We never had a music video. We never had a manager. We never had a booking agent, a record label, none of that. And so now, 12 years later, I'm going to Australia. I'm going to London. Just all over the world, and it's like people know that record, and I'm like, man, how is that possible? I'm like, how is that possible? Because I know people that got managers, they got record labels, they got booking agents, and you know, a lot of my friends who not Muslim, you know, they might think I'm crazy, but I know that it's Allah. I know that it's something bigger than us, you know, and because we sincerely believed in just being good and just talking about something real that was real to us, and we didn't know if people was gonna buy it. We didn't know if people was even gonna like it. You know, we actually walked away from that project, like that was some rhymes we wrote. But like I said, 12 years ago, 12 years later, people don't let us forget. They be like, man, binary star, and I just be like, wow, and it blows my mind. But you know, I just want to give y'all a background. You know, my experience with Noble Drew Ali and Malcolm X and Prophet Muhammad and the Quran and the Sunnah and music. That's how it all ties in together for me. So, you know, I got children now, and I try to just teach them what I know about my experience. You know, you know, a lot of stuff I learned from books, but you know, majority of it is what I learned in my experience and in my path, and just dealing with all different types of people: black, white, Asian, Arab, Latino, whatever. So I'm just gonna keep it.
Can you just tailor the question once more for me?
Just kind of how does that historical context, how do you connect and relate to that, and how does that come together to make up what your story is as a person who participates in hip-hop culture and is Muslim?
Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum. It's an honor to be next to One Below, one half of Binary Star. And honestly, this is a part of that history for me, this individual right here as well. That album he mentioned, Waterworld, also known as Masters of the Universe, once it was re-released, right? It's just dropped. Just inside there, it just has all these jewels about Islam and just like praise to Allah and all these other things. Even like the first track when it comes on, and this track is vital. Like I come from a b-boy experience. I was breakdancing for a number of years, and so this is like track one, which is reality check, and there's another track which is titled Honest Expression. It starts out with Bruce Lee, and both of those tracks were very popular in the b-boy world. This was like a b-boy anthem. This to breakdance, a b-boy.
You want me to drop that real quick?
Drop what?
That,
drop it.
Just the.
And so actually I have this book that I came across recently. It's like all my old rhymes from when I was younger, because I started making music, and as they mentioned in the bio, I stopped up until my conversion to Islam because of some understanding that I was given by Muslims who believe that music is in totality impermissible. But actually, so this rhyme book is from when I was like 13 or 12 years old, and then I have this list there where it's my inspirations, and my inspirations within the music industry were all these Muslim artists, which included One Below, included Slum Village, which I think maybe just one or two individuals on Slum Village, they were not Muslim. That included the late great J Dilla, Mos Def, Nas, and so on and so forth. And so even coming up listening to hip hop and the sort of hip hop that you would listen to as a break dancer, which is I like to call it organic hip hop, and you'll find in one track that the brother here has it where they explain that some of the hip hop you hear today, they call it hip hop. And so I just the Islam that, or the hip hop I grew up around, being a break dancer and listening to this sort of music and even trying to make music myself, the influence were all these individuals who happen to have some sort of ties to Islam. And additionally, other ties to Islam outside of hip hop, I think just, you know, as African American growing up in a black community, there's still some sort of understanding of Islam, whether it's just the Nation of Islam or you hear about 5% or Islam. There's always been that connection deep rooted in the African American community. So that's pretty much it.
So I wanted to build on what Nasheed said a little bit about educating your children, and you know, my dissertation is actually going to be getting into like how the oral tradition and how hip hop facilitates a process of educating other people, and that kind of is something that is very ancestral and ancient. I talked about that in the presentation. That's not new, but today we do it through hip hop culture. And how do you see your art and your participation in the hip hop culture as an opportunity to educate people about Islam, but also about other things?
Me personally, I mean, I consider myself a student, you know, and So basically, it's about me. You know, I don't read a book and then say, "Yo, I'm about to rap about this." You know, I gotta take what take it in and digest it and understand it myself. And then I just believe that like if it's a part of you, if it's really a part of you, then it's easy to just be that. You know, you don't gotta try to be funny or you don't gotta try to be creative. If you're a funny person, you just naturally funny. You're not trying to be smart. You know what I mean? So if you are internalizing these things and it's a part of who you are, then it's gonna show in your conversations. It's gonna show in your actions and your deeds. And so it's just really more so about me just making sure that I know how to preserve that, because I feel like if whatever you are, you're gonna be that wherever you are. And it's really, for me, it's about just putting my trust, putting my trust in the creator, not putting my trust in a budget or not putting my trust in a team or a record label or even putting my trust in a fan base or popularity. It's really about me just making sure that I'm sincere in what I'm doing. And, if I'm doing it for the creator, if the creator is accepting what I'm doing, I'm not thinking about how people are going to receive it, because people are going to receive it or not based on the individual. So I'm just more so thinking about understanding it myself, whatever the it is. I'm learning through books, I'm learning through conversations with people, I'm learning through experiences, I'm learning through other people's experiences. And then I feel like I'm that voice because I'm in a position to be that voice. I meet people every day, they got stories, but they don't have voices. So I'm like, how can I thread and tie that together? Because we are the same. I feel like we all, we could look at our differences and point out our differences all day, but like when I read in the Quran, there's a verse in the Quran, many verses where, it states that we are created different so that we can learn from each other, not so we can despise each other. So I'm just trying to figure out, man, how can we learn from each other? Even if you didn't go to the same classroom or if you didn't go to the same city, I'm like, how can I bring that back and teach my kids? And when I come back from Scandinavia, when I come back from Chicago, I'm trying to, relate to these people, as human beings, not as a rapper or as a business person or as a black person or whatever, but just, as a member of the same family. If I look at you like my brother and I'm looking at you like my sister, like when I give advice or when I talk about whatever, it's love and it's compassion. It's not about who's better than who or who got more money or who's cooler. It's more so about the same way I talk to my children or the same way I talk to my sister or my brother. It's just how do we share the planet? How do we share this information? How do we share these resources? So that's like kind of how I'm looking at it. Just sharing what I know. If I learn something over here and if somebody over there don't know it, or if I have something, it's really about sharing, with me. And it's not about me coming down the hill and giving it to the people and then returning to my hill. It's about us, we sharing this space. So I don't look at it like, yo, I'm gonna come and give y'all I'm gonna bless y'all with the little talent. It's not really like that. It's like, man, we sharing the planet together. So how do we do that? And so I'm just always trying to learn and be a part of that type of energy. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just how it is.
In regards to education and tying it in with hip hop and Islam, I feel like you have individuals like One Below and, God willing, what I'm hoping to do myself. And I feel like I'm the result of that responsibility. So I'm the result of subconsciously listening to this rap record where someone says something like Allahu Akbar, and you're like, what's that? Or even how I came into Islam, I learned about Islam in high school in one of my world religion courses. But it was just something I learned. I never really taken further interest into it at that time. But it wasn't until I opened this magazine, which was a complex by Mark Echo, and I went to this page, and they were inquiring to this guy's fashion and, last thing he purchased. And he mentioned last thing that he bought was a Quran for his son. And I was like, oh, snap. I wanted to look further into the Quran. Because actually the instructor who had taught me about Islam, she had taught about it in a very disdainful and distasteful manner. And so I was thinking like, man, I need to get the Quran. And then when I flipped to that page, I'm like, yeah, okay, I need to go scoop this up right now. So I pretty much left. I went to Borders. I got this old English Quran, and it wasn't working out for me. It was picked all. The English was just horrible, in my opinion. So I went back and got this Teach Yourself Islam book, and I just pretty much furthered education. That resulted in me continuing to go forward and actually becoming Muslim. And so what happens is you find these people like One Below and other people like Lupe Fiasco, Mos Def. It's just like Mos Def starts from his first album to the last album. The first thing you hear when it comes on, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And so it's just these jewels that people are sharing. It's a part of them that they're giving, and it's a part. And in this instance, in this case, it's a part of their faith and their belief. And so people are exposed to these things, and they may not even realize it, but subconsciously it's still there. And so growing up as this young kid who know nothing about Islam, and hearing someone drop something like Allahu Akbar or something about hypocrites or the Prophet and his way, or even like I used to listen to a lot of poor righteous teachers, hearing the stuff that even though they were nation of 5%ers, offspring nation of Islam, there still was jewels in there that caught my attention, you know, and I'm like, wow, this is interesting. I want to learn a little bit further. And so I think just being a voice, whatever your passion is or your career, your pursuit, just being able to incorporate a piece of you into that as well. And I think that's going to be the most benefit for anyone who comes across it.
Thank you. So I want to kind of think about that historical continuum, and that I kind of laid out, and I want to ask you all, to what degree, what does it mean to you to view yourself as an artist, as a Muslim artist, in relationship to that historical continuum that we laid out, thinking back to West Africa in relationship to today? And to what degree of that do you feel like to this point has been conscious or unconscious for you in your path to become a Muslim hip hop artist?
Going back to just being in prison and like having those couple of years to just, pound this thing into my head, what I personally learned from the Quran is that, Prophet Muhammad, Sallallahu Islam, he preached this message for 23 years, and so, some of his friends and family, they believed him and embraced it instantly, and some people, it took them 23 years to wake up or whatever, he wasn't out here like, if I don't get this deal in 5 years, I'm out, and so as Muslims, or, it's my understanding that, we should strive to follow the example of the Prophet Muhammad, and so, I don't want to sound disrespectful when I say this, but like, a lot of people thought he was like a poet, the Quran rhymes, if you spit rhymes, it's like, man, it's like some of the illest rhymes is Muhammad, like it was people that was doing oral traditions during that time, and they was real smooth with it. So when Rasulullah started, sharing the Quran with people, I mean, imagine like Jay-Z and Barack Obama and John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King and everybody just coming together to just write the illest social justice, lyrical, like metaphorical, like imagine that, imagine you hearing that, you being like, whoa, you know what I'm saying? And so he was spitting realness. And he was inspired by the Creator. And who is the Creator? The Creator is the all-loving. He's the one who creates for all. He's the most merciful, the most wise. Like you gotta, if you respect the Creator, you respect wisdom because He's the most wise. If you respect love, you respect creativity. You respect, all creation because it's all from the source. And so when I create something, I'm thinking about the same thing. How can I make something that's not just exclusive to one group of people? It's accessible to everybody. So looking at these traditions over and over and again, study, to me, the Quran is not the only, piece of information that you can find and learn about people. But if this information is from the Creator, the one who creates all, and He's telling you the blueprint for human beings and how they respond to truth, you know what I'm saying? Like I don't feel I gotta, watch the Oprah Winfrey show to figure out how to really connect with people. Like I can study the Quran because it connects with anybody who wants truth, who wants peace, who wants, life. You know what I'm saying? So, I see the stories and the examples in every culture. If you're going to people with something good, I mean they're gonna embrace it. So then you're gonna have opposing forces and stuff like that. So it's about aligning yourself with, people who want to perpetuate that good. And so I'm just trying to preserve that for myself. And when I look at the different examples throughout history. It could be Malcolm X, it could be Prophet Muhammad, it could be anybody who used the spoken word to like communicate with people. It's like if you look at the energy behind that, and then if you look at like the impact that it had on family or it had on community or just had on the world, um, that's really inspiring to me. Not because I want to be great, but more so because these words that we carry, like we vessels. It's not really coming from me. I didn't invent English. I didn't invent Islam, or I didn't even invent hip hop. But being a vessel to carry, if you're carrying water, or if you're carrying truth, or if you're carrying goodness from one place to another, it's just, from city to city, from generation to generation, like good is good, And so when I look at Binary Star, when I look at Malcolm X, when I look at some of these people were progressive, even though it might be, the steam engine might have been 100 years ago or whatever, but these people were talking about progressive things. They were talking about health and social, so the Quran is a book of social justice. And since the beginning of time, it's been corruption, it's been betrayal, it's been, all different types of things. But, since the beginning of time, you got people that want to be safe. They want peace. They want love. They want to be successful in whatever kind of way. So I just feel like every group of people, whether they're looking for it or not, what I'm saying, they need a messenger. What I'm saying, whether that message is, fight, or whether that message is peace, whether that message is prosperity or whatever. So every group of people needs a messenger, and they need messengers that really sincerely can care about the people and sincerely care about the message and not care about, being great or being rich or whatever. So that's what I get from Muhammad and Malcolm X and these people. It was that self-sacrifice, in the name of something greater and bigger than not just one person or a country, but just bigger than everything. Sorry for the long answers.
In continuum with the historical context, I think personally for me, like inwardly, it's sort of overbearing and it's almost fearful because I don't want to be put into this pigeonhole, into this idea where I become, or it appears that I'm some poster boy for Islam for maybe those who are outwardly non-Muslim looking in, and I don't want to be placed into that because I will misrepresent it personally. I know that, like, I do things that are maybe against the permissibility of Islam. Like even one of my recent struggles is I like gold. Personally, I like to wear gold. I stopped since then because I feel like it's a challenge that I can overcome. But within Islam, it's disliked for men to wear gold. And so I hate to be in a situation where, and honestly, I think just outside of Islam, I would say it's ungentlemanlike for men to wear gold. But God knows best. So I just fear to be put in that place where I'm just like seen as some poster boy for Islam and just misrepresenting, and then having to be under this microscopic view that everything I do is like, oh, that's that Langston. Everything he does represents Islam. All Muslims are like that. It's a huge burden. And that's probably one thing I fear about that.
Thank you for that. My last question before we go to Q&A is just, you saw kind of, I mentioned the globalization of hip hop and how Muslims connecting to hip hop all over the world and using it as a voice and an expression. So what does it mean to you to be part of a global Muslim hip hop culture? And Nasheed, I know you can speak directly to you living in Egypt. So I mean, I don't know, to what degree you all have experienced things and what it's meant for you to walk in the world with that experience.
I mean, it's a humbling thing for me personally because it's not something I think about. That's not my goal in life to be one below. Like I said with that Binary Star record, that's some rhymes we wrote, and we didn't even have a video or a tour or anything. Like, we was on parole. We couldn't even leave the state, so we wasn't like, I had no idea that like it would be, sometimes I'll get on the airplane and somebody will be like, yo. And I'm like, man, how is that? And so it's always a humbling experience for me. And man, it's like, if you're gonna say something or talk about something, you gotta really be that for real, And so when I said that to say, when I use these passports, hip hop or Islam or whatever, when I travel, I mean, in the Quran it says travel the earth and see for yourself. like, when I read the Quran, and in the Quran it talks about how God talks about how He is the one who guides the ships through the ocean. He is the one who opens up these paths for you, and he instructs us to travel and see for yourself. And so I'm in a position where I can travel from city to city or country to country, and I don't even gotta talk to people. I can just see how people living. I can just see what it is. I know the latest trends and the latest slangs and dance moves, and because when you go, when you go from place to place, you can see like, man, what they talking about. And the reason why I think that's so powerful is because you don't got to rely on a newspaper. I don't got to watch CNN to get the story. I could just call my brother that's in Egypt. I can just call my brother that's in Afghanistan. I could just talk to my brother in LA. I don't got to, you know, you know, read the newspaper. I got to wait for this, CBS to tell me what's going on or some news, whatever. And I think that's when we connect like that as people, and we understand that that's how we connect. Like, it's not about putting our trust in whoever is talking about whatever. You can get the real from the people that you know and you love and you trust. You know what I'm saying? And if you building a global family, it's like a family. You know what I'm saying? If your family is 5 people and you live in Pontiac, Michigan, and you can't trust nobody else, then who are you gonna talk to? Who are you gonna believe? But when your family is worldwide, man, you could just call your cousins and call your brothers and sisters, man, and just connect with them. You could travel. Like I said, it's a passport, and being one of the children of Adam, and understanding that, it's like you don't fear groups of people, and you don't fear, we're connected. You understand, like, this is I'm connected. I'm connected to all of this, and whether you rap or whether you just exist as a human being, you know what I'm saying? We are sharing oxygen anyway. We sharing the planet anyway. You know what I'm saying? We are. How many people like cheese? You know what I'm saying? How many people, you feel what I'm saying? And so it's so many things and so many ways that we can connect. And I think that the more I travel, the more I really understand that. When I'm sitting in Romania and none of these people speak English, but you put on that Gangstar and we all in there like, and I'm like, damn, man, that's the same thing, and over here it might be pizza, over there it might be Outcast, over there it might be, whatever it is. But the point is, like, we're all connected, you know what I'm saying, as human beings. And so the more I travel, I see it and learn it every single day. It just make more and more sense.
Hip hop, Muslims in the global community, and being a part of that, I think it's amazing. I think even in general, like hip hop aside, just being a part of that Muslim community, because there was a time, it's sort of changing now with post 9/11 views of Islam and Muslims, but there was a time, especially in the African American community, it was without a doubt, it was known if someone became Muslim, that was just practically a new person, refined in character, rectified their mannerisms and so on and so forth. And I was just listening to a song yesterday when I was driving back home. It was a Tupac song, I Ain't Mad at You, a very popular song from back in the day, where he says, oh, you're a Muslim now, no more dope game. And he also says, always want to go to the mosque, don't want to chase tails, like mess with girls and whatnot. And so I think it was always known, even at a time when I was with my grandmother growing up, and it was not just because she thought I was going to be some ruthless or ratchet child and prison was my destination, because that wasn't the case. But we had just finished watching Malcolm X. I was maybe 7 or 6 years old, and she was like, if you ever go to prison, become a Muslim. And I'm just like, well, damn, you think I'll go to prison or something? But it wasn't that she thought my destination was prison. It was just she knew that Islam refines and rectifies what the penitentiary couldn't do. It makes a new person, someone who's upstanding and dependable and a gentleman. The best way to put it. And so Islam was just it was just known for that. And I think today's version of Islam has been very tainted. And but it's still great to know that historically it came from that tradition and came from that era. And I'm glad to be a part of that as well.
I gotta just share this real quick.
Go ahead.
So this happened like last Ramadan. I'm in my living room. I don't know if some people might not understand this. I'm just gonna tell the story anyway. So I'm calling the Adhan one morning, and I'm calling the Adhan, and the call to prayer before the morning prayer, and straight up, the walls in my house just disappeared. You know what I'm saying? The walls disappeared, and while I'm Allahu Akbar, and all of a sudden I see myself standing on the yard when I was in prison, And this was all happening while I was, you know, making the call to prayer. And like what happened is, I remember when I took my shahada, I remember when I, you know, embraced Islam. And this brother, when I was in prison, his name was Kareem. And he said, yo, you want to learn how to call to prayer? And I said, yeah, you know, of course. And we went out into the middle of the yard, like in front of all the scumbags, the murderers and the rapists and the so-called low-life people of the earth, you know what I'm saying? And he said, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. And you know, to make a long story short, I was thinking like, whoa, like these are the people these are the criminals and the scums and the menace to societies. And man, we was really in there, like really trying to improve ourselves, man. We like, those people wasn't coming to me saying like, what are you doing in here? They was saying like, yo, you need some help, like, and they was giving us advice, and these were people that was really trying to help themselves, you know. And not only were we trying to help ourselves, but we was talking to the other scumbags about God. You know what I'm saying? And you know, I got, you know, family that go to church, no disrespect to anybody. I got a whole lot of civilized people that I know, respectable people, man. They not talking to each other like that. And they not even thinking about sharing that kind of information with each other. And I was like, man, we were like supposedly like devils and demons and ghouls and goblins. And we was really just thinking about God, man. And you know, when I read in the Quran again, not just in the Quran, but you could be in a well, or you could be at the bottom of a well, or you could be in a well, or you could be wherever, and maybe people don't understand. Maybe it's not an ear for you to hear or whatever, or talk to, but you know, you could always call on God. You could always call on Allah. That's my understanding. And so I was just thinking about that, because when you making this call to prayer, when you making your prayers, and when you even reading this book, you got to remember, man, that like right now, somebody is making that call right now in every city all over the world. You like connected with this universal energy. You know what I'm saying? They say if you focus on something, you put, you know, thought into it, you give it life, you give it energy. Like right now, somebody's having the same conversation. You know what I'm saying? And so when I thought about that, I was thinking like, man, this brother's in prison right now. It's like, so you're not just connecting with Muslims, rappers, or Muslim fans, or Muslim clergy, or Egyptians. You connecting with people in prison. You connecting with believers, whatever form and shape they come in. True Christians, true Jews, true Muslims, true believers, whatever, you know, Allah knows best. So I just think to be a part of something like that, even to understand, you know, when I went to Mecca, you know, when you see these 10, 15 million people, man, they coming from Puerto Rico, they coming from Russia, they coming from Philadelphia, they coming from China, they speak Chinese, they speak German, they speak French, but everybody, when you say Assalamu alaikum, everybody understand each other. You know what I'm saying? Islam is the same everywhere you go. When you read the Quran, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim is the same in China, it's the same in Germany, and to understand the uniform, you understand what I'm saying? It's like, it's almost, yeah, it's just a really humbling thing. You know what I'm saying? So anybody thinking like, oh, you know, it's about me, or I'm cool, or I'm great, it's really this universal brotherhood thing. It's a really awesome, powerful thing. So when I think about it, it's just really a humbling thing, you know, to be a part of something like that willingly, you know, not because your mom's made you do it, or because, you know, whatever, but to willingly choose to be a part of something like that is really an honor, and you know, it's a humbling thing, you know. And so, yeah, it's just a huge, you know, I connect with a lot of different Muslims and a lot of different people, because I've been to prison, I've been to high school, I've been to church, I've been to Egypt, I've been to Europe, I've been to, you know, all these different places, and you see it over and over again, you know. And everybody don't live the same, everybody don't have the same dialect or whatever, but the point is we are, you know, we are different, but if you cut us open, we are the same, you know, lungs, intestines, you know, that kind of thing. So it's just a humbling thing, you know, to me.
As long as you're not missing a lung, right? No, okay. So we're gonna open it up for Q&A, but before we do that, I wanted to ask y'all: are y'all down to drop some rhymes for people?
Oh gosh.
He's down. Inshallah. You actually want us to freestyle?
You can freestyle. You can do off, written, whatever you
Like
want.
this moment?
Yeah, you can have the floor, man. Before we.
Jesus Christ. Muslims believe in Jesus. For those who don't know.
I hate doing that because I'm an artist, so I know I'll put you on the spot.
That's
But then they're like,
People actually rather hear you do that than just be talking.
Actually, you know what? I'll do a song if it's okay if I recite something that was written.
you want to stand up?
I'm just trying to think if it's PG-13. It's titled Duct Tape and Glue. Popping pills, snorting ills, mini skirts, high heels. She just wanna be healed. She just wanna feel real. Instead of all that plastic, ninja could stretch her like elastic. Bad sis used her, abused her, stepped at a loser, touch her in places, trying to make her looser. And mother overlooked, so she took to the streets where these niggas give a second look. I know you're broken, I could fix you. Duct tape and glue. You want healing, I could heal you. Duct tape and glue. He used to play ring around the rosies, pocket full of posies. He used to play ring around the rosies, pocket full of posies. Now his pocket's full of kush, Vicodins, ecstasy, and hopes to make his demons hush. Victim of a priest's lust, his parents overlook. Asked to pass a cradle crook, shook his whole life. Now he approached knife, it couldn't be sadder. His body looks like Jacob's ladder, notch after notch. Attempts to blotch the pain, he was found self-slain. I know you're broken, I could fix you. Duct tape and glue. You want healing, I could heal you. Duct tape and glue. Removed her jab, said it wasn't her steez. Recollect how Imam had her on his knee, fulfilling his needs. She was hardly older than 3. Nostalgic tragedy where your eyes can't see. Want to fix her scarf, so we said have a seat. Forever she's been scarred, lost hope in heavenly. And I told her that's just him. He don't represent from where this Islam stems. I know you're broken, I could fix you. Duct tape and glue.
Yo, y'all mind if I sit down, do y'all? Is that cool? All right, this piece is called, I gotta tell you the whole title. It's called Thumper, a.k.a. the Cape Crusader, a.k.a. the King James version. It's an Old Testament and it's a New Testament. I was gonna do another one, but I think this might be kind of. This is a story about a young man who read a book, and you could tell on his face that he was shook. His head started thumping, and his heart started jumping, and he went into the booth looking for a savior, and he returned as the Cape Crusader. All right. Knew from the Genesis I had to make an Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, checklist. You Joshua's want to judge me because I'm ruthless? Uncle Samuel, he strategized the movements. 2 Kings is drama, so I spit chronicle. Ezra never minded Nehemiah when I write it though. Toby Judy a cutie, sold her body for money, but God loves Esther. Fred used to call her ugly. Cold as ICE, Cube, who's the Maccabee? The church say, oh, that's my J.O.B. I hold mics in my palm, rock a laugh with every song, proverbial tongue, songs of Suleiman, belong in the book of wisdom, Sirachnis, Isaiah, Thomas, God of my points and prophets, balling for sport, then Jordan and Carolina, recording my rare assignment when I'm bored with Jeremiah. I try again, Ezekiel, what if Daniel Lyon did? I'm like, no way, Hosea, when I find a pen, oh well, farewell, Joel, peep the syllable, famous Amos, people, Obadiah, individual, flow take you deeper than Jonah, it's so abysmal. And Lou, still get the signal for Rignal, microphones on microphones for you to consume, it's hard to stay tuned, some people be knowing Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, and Zechariah. Let's take it back to the top, shout out to Malachi. These Old Testaments from Decompose and Zowski to Prodigy, these words out of me, harmony, prophecy. And shout out to all the ones who never doubted me, eyes once blind, now I see how it gotta be. That's the Old Testament. It's nothing like the textbooks in the classroom. These testaments brand new. They add to, subtract to, divide you, Matthew. That's when the footprints took a step in the dark. Now the poison from the dart already leaving its mark. Some lukewarm water meant to wash off the stains. Really pissed off John cause it stayed the same. Like rappers touring Rome doing acts like Romans. Corinthians, another Corinthians, what a bonus. Galatians, inspiration, and my pages, Ephesians, pledge allegiance to my thesis. Flip these Philippian files for you Colossians. If these files rated X-Men, I'm still Colossians. Shout out to Thus 1, Timothy 2. By 10 was the Titus, and Dill is the proof. Some believe it when they see it in Philemon or like when a preacher's voice. Be like James Earl Jones when he's speaking. Peter Piper, Peter Pan. Pope John Paul told John Doe he was a John Claude Van Damme. I hate to be a rude Jude, I know that's your man, but love was lost in the translation. My revelation.
Wow.
Some things change, some things remain the same. It's an old school New James. As he flew through the pages, he turned into a Cape Crusader, and now he's off on his new thing. Thumper, 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 thumper. No.
All right. Wow. That was amazing. So we're going to open up for Q&A. We have a mic right here by the camera. So for those of you who want to ask any questions of our panelists, do we have any? Or go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. And then, but we'd like some people to go to the mic if possible. Or do you want to pass it? Yeah.
You mentioned Islam being or music being impermissible in Islam, and I know in some realms it is, and in some it's not, or depending on who you're talking to. I don't know quite enough, but can you talk about that or why you didn't stick with it?
Yeah, so actually the last song that I did before this latest project, the Serve Love prequel, it was titled Ya Allah, and I performed it for this Outlandish event, which Outlandish is like this Muslim group. That was like in 2008, and I didn't continue after that. But yeah, you pretty much nailed it. It's a difference of opinion. Some people say entirely it's impermissible. Some people say it just really depends on what sorts of instruments are involved in the music. But I personally I know that there's some people who say it's fine because the message is greater than what's getting across is what's most important. Absolutely.
Right over here on the left. Oh, there's.
One time I'm gonna answer like this. One time I went to Amsterdam with, when I was working with Fat Beats, we went over there to Amsterdam together, and it was during Ramadan one year. So while everybody was over there going to the smoke shops or whatever, I was just doing what I do, And so I remember I went to this show, and this young lady who happened to be Muslim, she was like, Nasheed, I was telling Joe, he's the owner, I was telling Joe that there's 1 billion Muslims on the planet. And if you tap into that market, like one below could be huge, right? So I was like, where you told him that? So anyways, Joe, the owner, comes to me and he's like, yo, Nasheed, you like the real thing. Like, you've been to Mecca and everything, man. You should be rapping about that. You should be sampling like Palestinian records. You should be, you should be doing this and doing that. And so my response to him was, I said, Joe, like, if I want to talk to the Muslims, man, I'm just going to go to the masjid, man. I'm not, like, I said, we love Muhammad Ali, and it's not because Allahu Akbar was on his belt. It's because he was knocking people out. You know what I'm saying? like we love Mos Def, and it's because his music is dope. It's not, he could work with DJ Premier or whoever. Like, if he didn't start making dope music, we're not gonna be feeling him. So I'm a father artist. I'm a husband artist. I'm a brother artist. I'm a Muslim artist. I'm all of those things. If they want to call me a Muslim artist, that's what they call him. I call myself Nasheed. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a vegetarian. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not any of those things. But I am a father. I am a brother. I am a Muslim. I'm all of those things. But that's not how I market myself. If you read my bio, it's not going to say he's an ex-con artist or he's an ex-high school student artist. You know what I'm saying? But I am those things. But I'm an artist, and I take pictures. They think I rap. I don't even call myself that, but some people would though. So I don't know if that make any sense, but I'm not a Muslim artist. You know what I'm saying? I'm a Muslim. I'm an artist. I'm a father. I like to play tic-tac-toe. I like to do a lot of things. I'm a cook. I'm a photographer. You know, but you know what I'm saying? I'm not a comedian.
Yeah, what it pretty much comes down to, again, I'm not trying to be some poster boy. And likewise, I mentioned in the first segment, it's just I'm giving a piece of myself when whatever it may be, whether it's b-boying, photography, MCing, or just meeting someone. So what it comes down to is that whole thing. I'm just a Muslim that happens to rap, or I'm a rapper that happens to be Muslim, vice versa.
Another thing too, I mean, this dude came to me once. He was like, you one of my favorite artists, man. He was like, I'm an atheist. And I'm like, man, how is that possible? But I mean, it's very possible. You know what I'm saying? You don't gotta be a gangster, man, to watch Scarface and say that's one of my favorite movies. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna relate in the way that you relate. You know what I'm saying? Some people want to smoke weed through our music, man. People hit me up they want our music in a snowboard video. I don't snowboard. I don't know nothing about that. But if you snowboard and you want to be out there hearing some, on a jump, you like, the way people explain it to me, that's how they relate to it. Everybody relate to it's all personal. You know what I'm saying? Food is personal. Music is personal. So, some people going to relate to Nasheed, the Muslim artist. Some people don't even hear the Islamic references. Some people, that's all they hear is the Islamic references. Some people hear the Pontiac references. I'm having 50 conversations. I'm not just I'm talking to everybody I know. Like, I know a whole lot of different kind of people. So I'm not a black man artist, but I am though, but that's not who I'm talking to. I'm talking to whoever's listening, and you don't have to be black or white or rich or poor or Muslim or whatever. Even if you don't hear at all, man, it's just the energy. Nina Simone could say, and you'd be like, damn. You know what I'm saying? You can feel it. You know what I mean? So it's that energy, man, and it's whatever you want to call it. You know what I'm saying? But that's how I would describe it.
We'll go up there and then we'll go to Naya.
Hi, thank you for your comments. It's been really interesting. I had a question. You both seem to have emphasized that you feel you're part of this global community, and that you want to emphasize love for people of all different cultures and races. But as Brother Amer pointed out, hip hop comes from a culture of resistance, and specifically against white supremacy. So how do you see yourselves as speaking out against the fact that you still experience racism and white supremacy is still a huge problem in this country and around the world? And how do you reconcile that with being a hip hop artist and trying to offer some type of resistance, while also a resistance specifically to white supremacy, while also maintaining love for this kind of global community?
So actually, what I understand you're saying is that primarily hip hop was founded on resistance from white supremacy. So yeah, I think that's a large part of it, depending on what artist in particular you're talking about. Because Vanilla Ice wasn't really talking about white supremacy. But no, I definitely feel that.
Pop.
I think I definitely feel that, because what I find personally is that I think with hip hop everyone's going to express themselves. I mean, and that was like one of the biggest arguments when Soulja Boy dropped. Is he hip hop? He's not hip hop. He's just this, he's that. But at the end of the day, he was someone who was expressing in the means that he knew how, and that was you. And so I think personally, I talk about racism in my music, but the racism I faced was from other black kids calling me white or Oreo. And so you hear that. I got a track titled "Free Your Mind" on this debut project, where that's something I went through. You know what I mean? And then I also, growing up around individuals who may find drugs to be their means. I talk about things of that nature. So I think every hip hop artist is really just talking about what they relate to. Honestly, I wouldn't say it's necessarily just founded on this and that, because hip hop generally is actually 5 elements. The title's not up there, but you have breakdancing, you have rapping, you have DJing, you have graffiti, and the 5th is disputable. Some people say beatboxing, some people say just knowledge. But so for that person who just breakdances his entire life, and he may be Crazy Legs, he's a hip hop artist, but he's just this Hispanic breakdancer. or this person who may have just been this DJ artist, this DJ his entire life, but he was born in Japan and he's DJ Crush. And so I think it just depends on what you relate to, and that's what you're gonna put forth as your struggle and so on.
I mean, in my family, I got preachers, I got atheists, I got midgets, you know, like, what I'm saying is it's all family, the grandmothers and the grandbabies, you know what I'm saying? So America is the civil rights movement, it's the Ku Klux Klan, it's all of that. It's good, it's bad, it's ugly. You can't even appreciate the beautiful if there's no ugly. There's no tall if everybody's 8 feet tall, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, I'm not expecting Flavor Flav to be Chuck D, you know what I mean? I want the people who know what they're talking about to talk about, and some people just want to have fun. Some people want to, you know, read a book and give knowledge. Some people just want to make music or whatever. So I think that you should be who you are. You know, however you fight or however you participate in the world, you know what I'm saying? You should be the best at. If you're a carpenter, you should be the best carpenter. You know what I'm saying? If you're the best, you know. So my understanding of hip hop, you know what I'm saying, is hip hop embraces it embraces everything. You know what I'm saying? And so it's the ability to turn nothing into something. You know, that to me, that's what wisdom is. That's the beautiful thing about hip hop. You don't gotta have musical background. You don't have to own instruments. You don't have to have a dance floor. You could lay down some cardboard and just and there it is. You don't even gotta have new shoes. You could just flip the shoestrings and still be hip hop. It's the ability to say, you know what, I'm resilient. I can take this and turn it into something else. You know what I'm saying? We take negative words and turn them into positive words. Now it's cool to be a nigga. Now it's cool to be, not because it's cool, but because we take nothing and turn it into something. You know, and if you really understand that, you don't need a booking agent or a whole team or a lot of money to have a good time or to make money or to travel or to deliver a message. You might not even be the rapper. You might just be the person with the space, with the backyard to say, hey, y'all come chill in my backyard. You know what I'm saying? And so I think with that type of self-empowerment, you're not thinking like, oh, I need a college education. Oh, I need a this, I need a that. It's like, nah, man, I'm good like the way I am. And that's my understanding of how, you can't go out and fight if you don't even know how to use your weapon. And the best weapon you have is, even if you're paraplegic, you could just use your mind. The only thing you can contribute is a smile. You know what I'm saying? It's like you could be fighting, you could take down you know what I'm saying? So that's my understanding. I don't think everybody should have this kind of message or that kind of message or this kind of image or whatever. I think that if that happened, a whole lot of people would be like, oh, that's a black thing. It ain't for me. You know what I'm saying? Oh, it's a tall thing. You know what I'm saying? But because it's tall and short and black and white and rich and poor, you know what I'm saying? To me, that's what hip hop is. You know, when you read the Quran, like Moses murdered somebody. This person was a kid. This person was an old man. This person, it comes, he can choose whoever he want to choose, and anybody can be that messenger. It can be a child, it could be a woman, it could be a person with a physical disability. It don't even matter. You know what I'm saying? If I don't know the books that Mos Def read, I could still be just as powerful, and I could just be humming. You know what I'm saying? And I think that to understand that it comes in all those forms, I think that's powerful to understand that we all, hip hop embraces all cultures and all people. Like white supremacy is about one group of people or whatever, but when you understand, it's like, nah, man, it's about all of us. Whatever you look like, whatever you sound like, wherever you come from, whatever your background is, I think that's the powerful message in hip hop. You know what I'm saying? It's not even verbal. It's really just how you see people interacting with each other. You know?
Yeah, and one thing I want to say also is that resistance doesn't have to necessarily be overtly political. Sometimes having a good time is resistance. You know, hip hop. A lot of hip hop started in community centers, just trying to take kids off the street, away from gang and drugs, which is an environment that's been bred by a systematic racism. You know what I mean? So sometimes that self-empowerment, that just having a good time and being safe and having a good time in a safe space, that can be a motive of resistance too. It doesn't have to be overtly a particular way. And also just that, like these brothers said, that hip hop is something that it's part of what I was trying to say is that hip hop is just a new terminology for something that has been going on for a long time. It's a continuation. It's just kind of what we call it right now. You know what I'm saying? But it's that kind of that universal energy that's bringing all these different kinds of people together, and the storytelling and the energy, and taking something negative, turning it into something positive, or just taking something from nothing and making it something. All of that is part of what we call hip hop. So I think we probably need to wrap up with the time, but I think some of us will hang out. Nasheed, you have some merchandise with you, right?
Yeah, CD, I think.
Yeah, I think you. $10 for a CD. Langston, do you have any merchandise with you? Okay, so Nasheed has some merchandise. We'll hang out for a little while. So, but thank you all very much for coming out. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, thank you once again. Oh yeah, thank you guys for coming out once again. Tomorrow night at the Blind Pig, Brother Ali is performing. The Reminders are opening up for them. We'd like to thank our panelists, Mohammed Langston and Nasheed Suleiman, one below. Thank you guys.